Hi there. Today I'm going to show you how to play Holiday by Greenday from their American Idiot album. This is a very good example of how layering guitar parts can create a wall of sound effect, which is very powerful on a recording. Very simple parts to put together. Once you've got them all, you can get a really nice sound out of them. So with no further ado, let's start with the intro. There you go. It's quite straightforward. What we've got are three different chord shapes. What I'm playing is an F minor, a C sharp major, a G sharp major, and a D sharp major. And I'm not playing all the strings, you'll notice. I'm only playing three strings. I'm playing the A string on the 8th fret, the D string on the 10th fret, and the B string on the 9th fret. By doing this, I'm leaving more space for the bass guitar and for the rhythm guitar once it kicks in, creating more of a contrast once the second part comes in and a more powerful sound. So our first chord is just the three strings, an F minor. What I'm doing with my index finger is muting my low E string, as well as the G and high E strings, so that only the three strings I want are ringing out, but I can still strum all six strings. So that's our F minor. We're only going to strum it twice because we get half a bar for each one of these chords. Now, F minor, down to C sharp major. What we're doing for the most part is just taking the whole shape and moving it down so that the index finger is resting on the 4th fret. So we've got, and that creates the lowest part of this chord. That creates the C sharp of this chord. But to make it a major chord, we need to have the 6th fret rather than the 5th fret here. So we need to have this sound rather than this sound. So I'm going to use my pinky. I'm going to place that on the 6th fret, which is the same one my ring finger's on. So I've got 4th fret on the A, 6th fret on the D, 6th fret on the B string. Now together you get a C sharp major chord. So those are our first two chords. F minor. From here on out it's plain sailing, because all you're going to move is you're going to take this chord and you're going to slide it up to the 11th fret. So your index finger's on the 11th fret, your ring finger's on the 13th, and your B finger's on the 13th. And that's your G sharp major chord. And then you're going to slide it down so your index finger's on the 6th fret, ring finger's on the 8th fret, and your pinky's on the 8th fret as well. So we get the D sharp major chord. So all those chords together, F minor on the 8th fret, so I've got my middle finger here, C sharp major on the 4th fret, so I've got my pinky coming in. I'm going to slide that shape up to the 11th fret, and I'm going to slide it back down to the 6th fret. So there's a fair bit of moving about. Once you get your accuracy down, so by accuracy I mean sliding and hitting the right note, it's pretty straightforward. So you're not doing an awful lot of moving about with your fingers, you're just moving about on the back of the neck of the guitar with your hand. The other thing that's very important is to keep everything muted that you're not going to be using. So any clashing open strings are really going to ruin the sound of this piece. So especially on chords like that, you really don't want to have that high E ringing out. It's going to sound awful. So if I put those all together, it sounds like this. That's the intro guitar part. That's the part that you hear come in at the very start of the song. So after that, we're going to take the same chord shapes, same chord names, and we're going to replace them with power chords. So rather than being a major or a minor chord, it's simply going to be a power chord. Now a power chord is any kind of chord that doesn't have a major or minor third, which means that it doesn't sound happy, doesn't sound sad, simply sounds powerful, hence the name. We're going to start on the same fret we started with our first chord, so on the 8th fret here, and we're going to have 8th fret on the A string, 10th fret on the ring finger, on the D string, and 10th fret on the G string with our pinky. Again, muting every other string that we're not going to be using, so it sounds like this. That's our first chord. That's an F power chord. So remember we started on an F minor chord, now we've got an F power chord. We're going to slide that down to the 4th fret. Because it's not major or minor, we don't have to change anything with the notes that we're playing with our fingers. We just have to shift it down to the 4th fret. So it's nice and straightforward. Okay, from here we're going to move to a G sharp power chord, but this time, rather than sliding up to here, what they do is they just shift down to the 4th fret. So we're staying on the 4th fret, but on the E string now. Now this is a G sharp power chord, but the notes of the guitar repeat from the bottom to the top. So we can create a chord shape at the bottom that has the same name as one at the top. And we do this because we want to back up a guitar part, like the intro of this song, that's playing up here. So when you place your power chord, your G sharp power chord, underneath your G sharp major chord, you get a much more powerful sound out of it, especially when you put a bass guitar underneath that and you put a bass drum underneath that. It's going to sound very, very strong. So our first 3 chords: F for F power chord, C sharp power chord, G sharp power chord, and the last one, unsurprisingly, is a D sharp power chord. And we're going to play that in the same position that we played the one in the intro. So it's going to be the 6th fret on the A string, 8th fret on the D string, and 8th fret on the G string as well. So those power chords all together sound like this. Okay, so if we put all the parts together, we should get something that sounds like this. There you go. So the verse is very similar to that. Stay tuned for a second. Okay, here's the verse. There we go. So you'll see it bears some striking resemblance to the intro part, especially the power chords. That's because it is almost identical. So what we're doing is we're starting in the same place, starting with our F power chord, going down to the C sharp power chord, down to the low E for the G sharp power chord, and then back up to the D sharp power chord. So far, so similar. This is where it changes. Again, you repeat for the second time, starting with the F power chord, down to the C sharp, down to the G sharp power chord, and this time we're going to be moving to a C power chord, which is on the 3rd fret on the A string. 3rd fret on the A string sounds like this. Now the reason they've done that is because a C is what we call a 5th away from an F minor, which is where we're going back to. It leads very strongly back to an F minor chord and gives us what we call a perfect cadence, is this sound. It's a very complete sounding harmonic resolution. Generally it's used to signal that something has come to an end or we're about to head back to the start of the piece. It's a very useful thing to know, and you'll see it a lot in this type of music. It's a very strong resolution. So that's the second time through. The third time through is identical to the first, so we still do the same thing: F, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp. The last time, the fourth time through, there's another slight variation. We do end on a C again, but this time we jump a little bit quicker. It sounds like this. So we hang on that C for a little bit longer. We also go to the D sharp beforehand. So rather than, the first time we went to a C, we went to the C like this. So we simply replace the fourth chord in the sequence with a C. The second time we do it, we're going to play all four chords as we normally do, and then we're going to tag the C on to the end. So by tagging that C chord on, we create a very strong sense of impending resolution. We sound like we're going to go to an F. We really feel like we want to go there. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. I'll just play the whole thing through one time just to really show you what I mean, and we'll move on to the chorus. You really want to hear that afterwards. Okay, so there you go, nice and straightforward. Stay tuned for the chorus. Okay, now's the moment we've all been waiting for. We're about to hit that big old Greenday chorus. So, here it is. That's it, all there is to it. So there's a few subtle changes to this. What they've done is they've used the same sequence of chords that we've been using for the entire song, but they've made a few little twists. So the order of chords is F, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, exactly the same as it's been before, but you'll notice that the F is no longer played up here on the A string on the 8th fret. Instead we're going to play it on the 1st fret on the E string. So we've dropped down an octave, which means that we're playing the exact same notes, but they are lower in key. This combined with that hanging C chord at the end of the verse really leads you to a sense of movement when you hit the chorus. The other thing they've done is that they've changed the spacing of the chords from half a bar per chord to a whole bar per chord, so it's now slightly slower in movement. This altogether, this gives you a much more driving and powerful sounding chorus, which is exactly what they're going for. So I'll just show you what we're going through. We're going through F for 1 bar, C sharp for one bar, G sharp for 1 bar, D sharp for 1 bar. Back to the start. F. Now we've got our old friend, the C chord. And that leads us back to the verse. You leave a 1 bar gap just as you go back to the verse, so he can sing the title of the song, Holiday, just on his own, which really leads it to stick in your memory. So the whole thing goes like this. On holiday. A bit better than that. And he goes to back to the verse and simply repeat the same structure that we just did back until we get to the chorus. After the chorus, we have a bit of a breakdown, so join me in a second for that. Alright, so we've been around the whole structure twice. Now it's time to hit the key variation that brings us back towards the end of the song. It's a big riff that sounds like this. So we'll look at that just with single notes before we start putting power chords onto it. It starts like this. We're starting on our F note, the low F on the 1st fret, going to the 3rd fret, and then to the 4th fret on the E string. Now what they're doing is this classic rock and roll thing where you take one riff and you play it 4 times. The 1st and the 3rd time you keep it the same, and the 2nd and the 4th you have a variation, a little answering rhythm that kind of serves to keep your interest in the song. So our first repeat sounds like this. 1, 1, 3, 4. Our second little repeat sounds like this. 4th on the A, 6th on the E, 6th on the A, and then 3rd on the A. So we're just taking notes from the F minor scale and putting them one after the other, and dropping back down towards hitting the F again. So it sounds like this. 4th on the A, 6th on the E, 6th on the A, and 3rd on the A. So our first two chunks, our first two repeats of the riff sound like this. Now here we have the classic part of it where you repeat the first chunk again. So we have. So the first one and the third one are identical pieces. The second one and the fourth one are similar but not the same. You can tell we have the same rhythm versus, but they're not quite the same. On that fourth time, the little ending riff, we're going 6th fret on the A, 8th fret on the E, and then 8th fret on the A string, which you may realise is actually an F note. The same F that we were using right at the very start for our F minor shape. So we're starting on an F down here and working our way up towards hitting the F right at the very top. The whole thing in single notes sounds like this. Now if you're playing it with power chords, you need to be very, very precise with how your fingers stay together because it's very easy to lose your place. All you do is you keep your index finger exactly where it needs to be to hit each one of those notes, and then you're going to place your ring finger and your pinky on top of that in the position for a power chord. So I take my first little chunk and I'll show you what I mean. So you can see my first finger is moving to do each note, my other fingers are moving with it. The next part's a bit tricky because you're string skipping. Well, you're not string skipping, you're moving from one string to another. It can be done, but it takes some patience and some practice. So keep at it and you should have it before long. Again, if you're doing that, you need to be very careful with the muting because it doesn't sound very good. You've got all these extraneous notes from the open strings that don't sound very good when you put them together. One little tip, if you're going to do this, there's a little thing that you can slap in there which isn't actually on the record. I think sounds quite cool, especially if you do it live and with some confidence, is hitting a 4th fret harmonic in that little space at the end of the riff after this. Now harmonics, where you just lay your finger flat across the fret wire itself. You don't press it down hard enough to fret the note, you just lay it really, really gently and strum it. And you should get a noise like that. You can do it on 4th, 5th, 7th, 12th, pretty much anywhere up the neck you'll get some sort of sound. In this case we'll use the 4th just to create a dissonant sort of hit. So it would sound like this. That's a better one right in the end. So there you go, there's a few little hints and tips. Now let's look at playing the solo. Okay, here we are. We've had the verse, the chorus, we've had the riff. Now it's time for some fireworks. Here's the solo. There you go. The great thing about Greenday solos is that you can sing each and every one of them. There's no mindless whittling, there's no finger acrobatics, gymnastics or anything like that. It's all very straightforward, all very heavily related to the chords that you're playing behind them. So it's all written as a song rather than as an exercise in showing off. So the best thing you can do for this is to visit the link in the description below and look at the tab for it in there, because there's too much to show you in just one quick little video. But I'll quickly run through each little part so you can see how it's constructed. So we start here on the F, on the 6th fret. Answer that by going down to the 4th fret. So we question, answer. We play a C minor arpeggio, which is G, on the 8th fret, D sharp, as you know it is E flat in this case, on the 8th fret on the G string, and then 5th fret on the G, and then back to our G, our 8th fret on the B string. So that little arpeggio sounds like this. Leads us back to our F, which we play 6th fret on the B, 8th fret on the E, 6th fret on the B, 8th fret on the E. So the first half of the solo sounds like this. Then we just repeat from there. The first half of the second repeat is exactly the same. And you finish it with a C major arpeggio. This time we're going to slide to the 12th fret, 13th on the B, 12th on the E, hold it, and then you bend it. Bend it so it becomes the 13th fret, which is a high F. So the whole thing sounds like this. There you go, a nice straightforward solo. Check out the tab in the description. They'll show you a lot better than I just did what exactly you need to play. But bear in mind that I'm separating all my fingers into doing different parts. Now, everything from there just repeats. There's a big breakdown with a bass, and then we repeat the chorus twice, and then the verse is used as an outro. I hope that's been very helpful. I hope you've enjoyed watching the video. If you need any more help, please don't hesitate to contact me, or if you can't, then please just visit my website. There's a lot of tabs, chords, everything on there. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.